Good evening, folks. This is the Factivist Project. And we're going to deal in some facts tonight that people really don't want to deal with, apparently. Tonight, we're going to talk about January 6th, because this marked the one-year anniversary this week. And this is an event in history that should never be allowed to fade away. Now, I've been told by people, we're done with it. It's over and done with. And, they don't want to deal with it. And you know what? Tough shit. Let me just tell you something. This was the worst assault on the people's will and democracy in over a century. No protest group, no issue, no event ever involved breaking down the Capitol doors and looking to hurt people who are elected as public servants. Now, you may not like these people, you may not agree with these people, but that is not what democracy is all about. What January 6th was an insurrection and an attempted coup by a desperate politician who did not want to relinquish power and whose vision for America is deeply rooted in white supremacy, violence, and hatred. And we are going to talk about this ad nauseum until it's done with once and for all. So we're going to start out here. And I'm trying hard here not to repeat the material that was in this particular video. This video was made on November 26th of last year. And it was everything that we had up until that point about what happened on January 6th. And you know what? You can't really see the cover that was made for this video, but the cover depicted a violent scene from the events of January 6th, and it said, "Ignore this at your own peril." Now, you can very well think that it's okay to put this whole thing under the carpet and forget about it. I'm here to tell you that they are not done. This is not over, and they are just beginning, and we need to continue to expose what happened on this day. So just to recap, you can find everything you want and everything that transpired right from the telephones of those who took part in this insurrection in this report right here by ProPublica. They literally monitored Parler on that day. They have videos here that, you're going to see that may be disturbing to you. But my suggestion is you need to understand what this was all about. This was not about addressing grievances in the government. This was about maintaining the presidency of a despot. This was a guy who did not want to give up his office. End of story. You got ProPublica. You can go to AP News. All of these will be in here. The Capitol riot 1 year later. These are all the stories. I know people don't like to read, but God damn it, you know what? And I also know that 54% of the American public can't read above 6th grade level, but I'm suggesting to you that the people who can need to read. The Washington Post, before, during, and after. Okay. The Washington Post always does a good job. Reuters. An hour by hour look at the assault on the Capitol. So I'm going to read a couple of these to you. 12:53 p.m., lawmakers gather for a joint session of Congress to certify Joe Biden's election win over the objections of some Republicans as an initial wave of Trump supporters topples barricades on the west side of the Capitol and harasses police officers. 1:02 p.m., Vice President Mike Pence, who had legal duty to preside over the certification of Biden's win, releases a letter making clear he will not overturn the election results as Trump has urged. Two 12 p.m., rioters enter the Capitol building through smashed windows, a floor below where the Senate is in session. Look at this. Seriously. None of this, by the way, is supported by your right of free speech. 2:14 p.m., a lone Capitol police officer, Eugene Goodman, confronts rioters ascending a staircase where there are doors to the Senate chamber in both directions. Goodman lures the mob away from the chamber, allowing lawmakers to shelter and other officers to seal the doors. (2:24 p.m.) Trump blasts Pence on Twitter, saying he didn't have the courage to do what should have been done. He fed this, all of it. 2:44 p.m., Ashley Babbitt attempts to climb through the broken part of a door leading into an area known as the Speaker's Lobby. A Capitol police officer fatally shoots her. She is not a hero. She is an insurrectionist. She chose to do what she did. She wasn't there to protect anybody. She was there as part of a riot. 3:13 p.m., Trump tells his supporters to relent, writing on Twitter as live television is showing the unprecedented assault. I'm asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful. No violence. After they've been violent for over an hour and a half. Now he calls for peace. I'm calling bullshit. And this is the crux of what they are looking at right now. His inaction while all of this was going on. Let's make one thing clear. This wasn't just Donald Trump. There are 147 lawmakers who voted to overturn the election, and this was after the riot took place. 147 insurrectionists, 139 of 221 House Republicans, and 8 of 51 Senate Republicans voted to overturn the election. Yet, when you ask them, do you believe the election was stolen? They do not respond to the press. Because even if they do not believe the election was stolen, they know that Donald Trump owns the Republican Party. And they are so concerned with keeping their own positions and maintaining power that they will capitulate to whatever the orange jackaloon wants. They are now known as the Sedition Caucus. So this is a great piece right here. They go through and describe everybody involved here on a political level. Josh Hawley, Mo Brooks, Andy Biggs. They go through the senators. They go through the representatives. They show tweets that happened during the insurrection. They go through the whole list. Louis Gohmert suggests people go to the streets and be violent after the judge throws out a basic election law, a lawsuit. People, you know what? This is not an isolated incident. These are people we are left with in our government. Okay? And as we go through this presentation, I'm going to show you they want even more. There are 57 people who participated on January 6th who are now running for office in 2022. And we will show that. But let me show you this first. This is the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. And I want you people, you don't read, so you're going to have to listen to me. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state, who having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in an insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. In other words, these people, under the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, should all legitimately be removed from office. That is what, if this is not stopped, if this is not dealt with, the Constitution is meaningless. So now we're going to talk about the Select Committee. So here's what happened initially. The GOP and the Democrats in the House put together a committee. They voted on it. It passed. And it went to the Senate. Now, people say to me, well, the GOP tried to cooperate. Well, actually, the GOP cooperated because they knew in the Senate it would be killed, and it was. It was killed in the Senate because the Republicans had less of a minority in the Senate. The Democrats did not have enough to make this commission survive. So where did we go from there? Rightfully so, the Democrats weren't about to let this go. So Nancy Pelosi tried again. She put together another committee. She rejected two of the people that Kevin McCarthy wanted, one of who is Jim Jordan, who is right now being subpoenaed to testify and has vowed that he won't cooperate with the January 6th committee that exists. So once that happened, the GOP walked away from this entirely, with the exception of two people. Nancy Pelosi invited Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney. Both accepted, and they are both on the committee. Liz Cheney is actually the co-chair. Now, I'm not politically aligned with either Adam Kinzinger or Liz Cheney, but I have a great deal of respect for what they're doing. If you ask me, these are people who actually care about the GOP as a party and do not want to see them go down this route. And they also care about the government, and they care about the country. And they are working together, the Republicans and the Democrats, without any bickering, without any fighting. They are just simply looking for the facts surrounding what happened on this day. And there are several articles. I don't have them up here, and I will just talk about them without showing them, because I have posted them before and they are in the previous video. That Nancy Pelosi did the right thing by continuing on with this, and she did the right thing by keeping it small, because it's much easier to function without political distractions. So I believe there are 9 people on this committee, 7 Democrats, 2 Republicans. And by the way, the 2 Republicans have basically sacrificed their careers. In Wyoming, where Liz Cheney is a representative, the Wyoming state legislature has determined that she is no longer a Republican. They have disowned her. So her chances of re-election are tough. I don't believe that Adam Kinzinger's chances of getting re-elected are going to be any easier. They will be targets. So let's talk about what they've been doing. They've been in existence for about 6 months. And they have literally received thousands of documents. They have requested these documents from the National Archives. They have requested these documents from, people aligned with the administration. Many have turned documents over. Some have not. They've gone to court for other documents. Donald Trump tried to hide his documents. He was rejected by the courts. They have traveled across the country. They have spoken to many people, the whole thing started off, by the way, with the Capitol Police and their testimony. And that's in the very first video that I showed you that I made. So that's how they started this off. The first people that they heard from were the people who were on the ground trying to protect the legislators that day. So they have aligned themselves. They have broken themselves into 5 teams. Now, there are nine politicians involved, but they have a staff of about 40 people. And, there is no way that 9 people can ever just wade through all this information on their own. They have to have staff to work on this. So they have broken this up into groups. So the one team is called Inside the Fence. And what they're doing there is trying to understand the preparation and response to the event by federal and local law enforcement. Part of this whole investigation is trying to figure out a way to make this so they can never happen again. I don't think anybody thinks for a moment that anyone reacted properly to this, but I don't think anybody has ever been faced with this before. The second is called Follow the Money, and they are examining the funding for these demonstrations. And there is ample evidence that this was not just peaceful patriots who showed up and got out of control. The third group is investigating online misinformation and extremist activity. The fourth is looking at the pressure campaigns in Washington and in state capitals to overturn the election or delay certification of the electors. And the fifth team is focused on looking at the organizers of the demonstration on the National Mall and at the Capitol. So they basically have this thing down, and they have been at this. They're waiting for another 800 pages of Trump's official records, but that right now is still in the courts.
So, Deb, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Have they determined how long this planning took from the moment somebody suggested this whole thing to the date that it happened?
I don't think any of that is public knowledge right now.
Okay.
This committee is going to not release any information until they start the hearings. And the hearings, by the way, will be public. All right. There's a reason, as annoyed as some of the people might be, there's a reason to not make this public right now. I don't think it would be wise, considering the fact that they are considering criminal referrals. They did not release any information that they had for who was culpable with Watergate the whole time the Washington Post expose was going on. I can tell you the people who were investigating did not release any documents or any information. It would have been stupid to do so. So now what we have is they're preparing to go public. This is where you're going to start to see some of what they have. Okay. And what they intend to do in 2022, which is right now, is start public hearings on all of their findings. Right? They have interviewed more than 300 witnesses in the past 6 months. They did travel around. I mentioned they traveled around the country. I didn't say why. Part of that was to talk to election officials in certain states where Donald Trump was exerting pressure. Okay, Arizona, several other states as well, Georgia. So part of that was to get information from those people. Now they're going to go public with this. And part of the reason there is a certain degree of urgency with this commission is we have the midterm elections coming up in November. And I promise you, if you return power to the GOP, this is going to be the first thing that gets shut down. The GOP will never continue this investigation. It'll be dead in the water. Nothing will happen except potentially another insurrection. So there is a certain amount of putting the pedal to the metal now on this. And they've been working doggedly on this without a break, except during the holidays. And I really believe that this entire commission feels a sense of urgency. So this was reported in AP. It's reported in several places. It's also in CNN. I did not include that. It's reported in, U.S. News and World Report. They are going public. And Liz Cheney gave an interview in Rolling Stone. And basically, she's basically saying they have the goods. Now, I don't know Liz Cheney to be one that talks out of turn. If she generally, I may not like everything she says, but she's also not going to, not one to overblow and overstate what she has for any reason. She expects that you will see a lot. We anticipate, is what she said. This was, I believe this article was from, I don't remember what the date of the article was, but it was before the first of the year. We anticipate next year we'll be conducting multiple weeks of public hearings, setting out for the American people in vivid color exactly what happened every minute of the day on January 6th here at the Capitol and at the White House, and what led to that violent attack. So one of the figures of interest who seems open to testifying publicly is Bernard Kerik, the former New York City police commissioner and friend of Rudy Giuliani. He said he will not provide documents unless he can testify publicly. So we'll see what happens with that. We still have to see what's going to happen with Bannon, Flynn. Flynn tried to shield his documents. He was also rejected by the courts. But I tend to think that this committee has more on all of these people than they're letting on right now. And it would be stupid of them to play their hand before they need to. So there are some other things that have come out since the first video, some other things that I've learned since I started looking at all of this to put this together. So we have a new right-wing group here. We know the Oath Keepers, we know the Proud Boys were involved, but there is this group called the First Amendment Praetorian, and they are tied to Michael Flynn, who's a real, honest to God, jackaloon. The fact that this guy was the national security advisor, I don't know about you, but the hair in the back of my neck stands up every time I think about this clown being the national security advisor of the United States. This is a guy who openly called for a Myanmar-style coup in this country.
So, Deb, honestly, he looks like James O'Keefe in that picture. He really does.
Yep. Yep. And by the way, the members of the First Amendment Praetorian are his bodyguards.
Right.
Okay? So they are a right-wing paramilitary group. Be very afraid, folks. They have been, guards for him, for Flynn and other, celebrities at the Stop the Steal rallies. but they are indeed less well known than both the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys, even the Boogaloo Boys. I don't think I've heard anybody publicly talk about this group until this article. Hold on a second here, folks. Okay. Now, Representative Thompson here, who was actually the chair of this commission, they have revealed some things prior to going public. They have revealed information that some of the protesters met with members of Congress, that on the day of the insurrection, they had their photos taken with these people. Two people who have been mentioned again, Scott Perry of Pennsylvania and Jim Jordan of Ohio. They are refusing to cooperate, but they were with some of these people prior to the insurrection. We know that there were tweets sent from inside the Capitol by Lauren Boebert about the locations of where the legislators were being taken. She also tweeted that Representative Pelosi was removed from that room. So there's a whole host of stuff that has leaked out. At the very beginning, we had heard that there was a tour group taken through the Capitol. Now, I haven't heard anything about that since that article came out. But initially, it was reported that it was Lauren Boebert's family, and somebody commented that her family must be huge because of the number of people she was touring through the tunnels of the Capitol. So I'm sure that that might be part of what gets revealed. I don't know. I can't say that for sure, but that's another interesting event that still needs to be clarified.
Can I just add that reading the court documents of the people that were at the riot, the insurrection, the court documents, from what I remember, they said specifically that the Capitol was closed to the public. So if there was a tour, it was definitely somebody VIP.
Right, and somebody who set it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what they really—
But it wasn't like an everyday Joe
Right.
Schmo,
Yeah, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not sure that giving a tour under the Capitol tunnels is a normal thing on any day. It just doesn't seem. I mean, I've been on a tour of the Capitol when I went to Washington. They toured the Capitol, but no one took me underneath anything, at least not that I can remember.
Well, the exterior was closed to the public because they were having Congress was in session.
Right.
So,
So what they're really looking at with Trump right now is that 183 minutes of time when the violence started to the point where he finally said something about peace. And there are stories out here about many people from his own family telling Mark Meadows to tell him to call off the dogs, several members of Fox News, and we're going to get into all of that. Fox News telling him that he needs to stop or that he's going to ruin his legacy, whatever the fuck that is. What his legacy of what? White supremacy? So we know that people were calling for him to do the right thing, and we know that he made a video and he kept recording it over and over and over again because he wouldn't say what they wanted him to say. So they're looking at that, and they are looking for an incriminating video of him that was recorded on that day. I don't know that they've actually gotten their hands on that yet, but I do know that one of the terms that Liz Cheney used to describe that entire 183 minutes of basically allowing these people to run amok, she called that dereliction of duty. So whether or not that is what they're going after, I don't know yet. So let's talk about some of the other people involved here. I don't know if you know this guy, but Ron Watkins, I don't know if anybody saw the QAnon special that they made. I know we talked about it in a previous edition of this show. But this guy here is rumored to be the person who actually is QAnon. He's the one that started all of this. Rumor has it he ran it from the Philippines because there's actually no limitations on what you can do there on a social media scale. They have no restrictions. They have no laws relative to this. So you can operate. I mean, this is where things like 8chan and all of those conspiracy theory groups are run out of. So what they basically did was they call these people influencers. I call them propagandists, but that's the same thing. They had 23 right-wing influencers who took care of this, who started this whole thing with a media blitz. The whole election was stolen thing, the whole 9 yards. But Ron Watkins basically is a guy that they're focused on. He actually moved to Arizona to run for Congress there and lost. But just because he lost once doesn't mean he's not going to try it again. And rumor has it that he is running in Alabama. I've not been able to confirm that. But you will see further on, he is raising money to run for Congress in 2022. I'm just not sure where. So this is the document, the actual 22-page document, Strategic Communications Plan, Giuliani Presidential Legal Defense Team. We have 10 days to execute this plan and certify President Trump. So this is a whole communication strategy. This whole strategy of where to say, talk about the Dominion machine fraud, the mail-in ballots fraud, deceased people voting, underage people voting, all of this nonsense that there is absolutely no proof of. And clearly in the United States, there really doesn't have to be any proof anymore. It tells them, it says what the messaging should be, repeated over and over again. YouTube influencers, conservative bloggers, talk radio, tweets. It's an entire fucking marketing communications plan. I did this for a living. I know what this looks like. Some of the other things that are rarely spoken about, and I don't know if this will be part of the conversation, the 2 bombs that were left, one at RNC headquarters and one at DNC headquarters. They're still looking for this guy a year later. They have video. They have descriptions of his sneakers. They're offering $100,000 reward to find this guy. And by the way, one of these bombs was left outside of DNC headquarters, and Kamala Harris was there on that day and had to be removed from the building. So let's talk about fascism and what that looks like. Let's talk about what are the other elements that come into play with fascism. It's not just politicians. It's the news media. The Fox's coverage, it was like watching fucking Fantasy Island. The stuff they were saying, they were blaming Antifa. They were blaming Black Lives Matter. It's not like a siege. It seems like they are protesting. Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. Well, I kind of protested before. I certainly didn't do what they did. And while these people, by the way, were encouraging Trump to tell the protesters to stop being violent, let me just tell you that immediately after this occurred, they've been out there whitewashing this thing ever since. Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson's freaking special that's streaming on Fox right now is total fantasy. His whole explanation of January 6th is an utter and complete fucking lie, unsubstantiated by any evidence.
And they make it so much worse because they backtrack, you know?
Right.
They'll say 4% of a truth, and then they'll be like, no, I was wrong.
Right.
And then it just adds to the confusion. These right-wingers, they don't understand that they're being lied to.
Right. So Laura Ingraham, she's another one, who even though she was telling Trump, it was a disaster what he was doing on one end, she's out there towing the Trump line the next day, downplaying all of this, minimizing it. They were just innocent people who were caught up in the moment. Trump's cable cabinet. When you have news sources texting and influencing the White House, telling Trump how to behave in office, how to run in office, how to, basically govern the American people, that's a bad sign. That's a bad sign. Honestly, I don't see the Washington Post doing this. I don't see the New York Times doing this. It just doesn't happen. OAN. OAN is another, a media outlet. I can't call it a news outlet. It is basically, Donald Trump TV is basically what it is. He has been on here since the insurrection, and he continues to spread the lies. Okay, now he did cancel his planned January 6th event, but then he went on OAN and repeated all these lies. He was also interviewed by Christina Bobb, who was a reporter for OAN. But it should be noted that Christina Bobb spearheaded the efforts to overturn the 2020 election results through audits and was present in the war room at the Willard Hotel during the day of the Capitol riots. They call it the war room. There was planning going on there. I should tell you now that the January 6th Commission has subpoenaed information from that hotel as well. And then you have the involvement of corporate America. It was AT&T that helped build OAN. And AT&T executives basically said that they wanted a conservative channel because there were too many liberal channels. Now, I've said this before and I'll say it again. There probably are more liberal channels on television, but that's a balance because on the airwaves, the radio, talk show, it is totally owned by the right wing and has been totally owned by the right wing for a very long period of time. There is literally, I know of actually no liberal efforts whatsoever. There used to be this channel called Air America. It did not last for very long. That's where Rachel Maddow came from. She was on Air America. They were trying to be the right wing's answer on the radio waves. That has never taken off. I have people I know who wake up every morning, get their coffee and go upstairs and listen to Rush Limbaugh every day, over and over and over. And it's brainwashing and it's continual. And this is what happens when you have politicians, the news media, and corporations all working together to promote a message.
Real quick,
Yep.
of the top 20 radio stations, political radio stations,
Yep.
or news programs, there's only one that's left wing, and that's Tom Hartman. That's
Right.
it.
Yeah,
Everybody else is right wing.
correct.
Everybody.
And then we have Newsmax. This was a false flag operation, just in case you didn't know. The Democrats did this. I'm so goddamn tired of these nitwits. It's not even funny. They have absolutely no evidence.
Right.
They say it, and that's what it is. They say it, and that's what it is. I've said it before. I said it last week in a video. Wherever there is a cataclysmic event like this, wherever there is a conspiracy, if it's real, there is always a goddamn paper trail. Always. These people are building a case against the people who participated in this based on documents. They memoed each other. They wrote plans to do this. There is always a paper trail that can be found. So here we have the influence of corporate America. Corporations and trade groups, even though many of them have said they would stop giving money, that was a lie. They continue to donate to the Sedition Caucus, those senators and Congress people who voted to overturn the election. You know, we're talking about the American Bankers Association, who gave $200,000 to Republican leaders, including Kevin McCarthy. Boeing, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, General Motors have contributed over $650,000 to the GOP election objectives since January 6th, even after declaring that they would stop. They have received $8 million in campaign donations from corporations and trade groups, and that was information, you can click on the link right here, shared with CNBC. They continue to be empowered by corporate America. And that is because corporate America knows they will take care of them on the other end. Everybody thinks Koch Industries is gone just because one of them died. Think again. It's a self-sustaining money factory for the right wing. They help fuel the Capitol insurrection. And people say, well, how did they do that? Because they've been funding these people for years. And you know what? This is a multi-pronged approach, okay? They fund anti-science movements, okay? They fund anti-government propaganda. They fund people who deny climate change. They fund the same people who deny COVID-19. They fund the anti-vax movement. These documents all exist. The money can be traced. It has all been traced. This is yeah.
I have a couple of points. If you guys really want to know how the Koch brothers infiltrated the system, read Dark Money by Jane Meyer, number one. If you want to stop some of this in their tracks, boycott General Motors, boycott Boeing. Anything that Lockheed Martin does, don't get involved. Don't buy stock. Don't buy stocking Koch Industries. Anything that they produce or sell, stay away from it. That's the way you deal with this.
Companies that are owned by Koch Industries. There's an entire list of companies you can stop.
There's a ton of them.
Ton of them. I don't know what it is that people need to understand about this. You know, this is your country. Take a look at where we are. If people aren't alarmed by this, there is definitely something wrong. This was written on January 5th, 2021, and nothing has changed. They bankrolled those senators who wanted to steal the election for Trump, and they continue to bankroll them today. Nothing has changed.
The day before the insurrection, by the way.
Right.
This is, I mean, come on.
Right? This is the day before the insurrection happened. This article was released. By the way, this was the Center for Media and Democracy. This is a good website.
Yeah.
So now we get to this part of the story. The real tragedy is that this is not over, okay? Anybody who thinks that this was just a one-off and it's can't happen again here, you know, we look suspiciously, seriously like Germany before Hitler. We're all asleep at the switch here. We're all worried about the big tyranny of wearing a mask. We're all worried about, oh my God, I need to go on a cruise. I'm so tired of being put upon. I'm so sick of COVID. I'm so sick of fucking listening to people whine. It's not even funny. This shit's happening right under your fucking noses, people. I don't know what more it takes. We have a Supreme Court that's about to take away a woman's right to choose. And we're all caught up in stupid shit that's called the public health. Okay, we've had public health and a government that takes care of the public health for decades in this country, for a century. Okay, this is not the first pandemic that ever happened. This is the role of government, to protect its goddamn citizens.
There is evidence that about 1/3 of Americans are infected.
Right.
And you have right-wing governors who are allowing their states to explode with this virus.
Let's talk about just real quick before I go to the next slide. Let's talk about Texas, for example. A man who has taken every mask mandate to court, Governor Abbott. A man who claims he is protecting children by not enforcing a mask mandate because he's protecting parental rights. Okay, what is the first thing he does? His state is exploding with cases of this. He writes the federal government for help. This is a man who wants to literally run his own country like it's his own nation, but he knows where to go when he needs money.
Right.
And you know what? You know who pays that? The taxpayer pays that. Let's talk about this now. If Trump's not traveling around the country spreading the continual lie about the election being stolen, what he does is he goes out there and he makes fun of the people who were the victims of the Capitol attack. He calls them weak. He called the police officers pussies on the day of that event. Okay, he is saying that they're faking their trauma and anxiety. And other times it says here he's done poor whining impersonations of perceived enemy lawmakers crying about the riot. You know what? This guy is, for all intents and purposes, you know what? He's way more than just a fucking reality TV star and a carnival barker. He is evil incarnate, in my opinion. He is a guy who, is as close to being a dime store dictator as you will ever get. And that's exactly what he wants. He likes power. He gravitates towards people who are dictators, loves Putin, loves North Korea. He loves Bolsonaro. Have you ever heard of any president of the United States endorsing a dictator for another country's government? He endorsed Bolsonaro for president.
Not only that, he ridiculed the parents of a fallen military hero. He, like him or not, he ridiculed McCain for getting caught.
Right.
And has he ever been in the military?
No.
I'm not a fan of the military, but you know what? If you're going to say stuff like that, then you better put up or shut up.
Here's a guy who never served in the military, but he loves the military.
Right.
Loves it.
Yeah.
He wanted to have a military parade. Remember that? Don't laugh at this shit. This shit is fucking scary.
Yeah.
There he is again. The orange jackaloon. So let's talk about this. Insurrection is chic is a serious growth sector. Part of what attracts these people, as stupid as this sound, it's the talking points, the rhetoric, the clothes they wear, the military garb, all of this shit. This is all for some people, this is all cool stuff. Carrying guns, waving flags, beating police officers with fucking poles from American flags. How's that one for you? That one sit well with you?
T-shirts with slogans on them, the military garb, all that crap.
All of this shit, all the people that were down there with their T-shirts on, 6 million wasn't enough. Think about this shit. Seriously, think about
and another thing too, the difference between what these insurrectionists did and say like BML or any other climate change activist protest group. You don't see BLM going out with gallons of beer and drinking liquor. These people, they think this was a party.
I know.
It wasn't,
Right.
They're not fighting for their lives, even though they claim they are. They're fucking partying in their military garb. They didn't even allow the women to walk with them on their march. The women had to walk on the sidewalk.
Right.
That's how fascists protest.
Right. And you know what? And you know what? Honestly, women being willing to do that, what the fuck is wrong with the women in this country? You know, not only do they willingly capitulate to men who are misogynists, not only does Ashley Babbitt realize she lost her life fighting with misogynists? She's supposed to be some kind of fucking hero to everybody? No, I don't think so.
It was a wasted life.
It is.
She wasted her life.
This is just recently. They got together again down in DC. It was a small group to, support someone who had been arrested for what they did in January 6th. This guy is caught with a freaking explosive. I'm tired of hearing about how the left is violent. This is all coming from the right. Every single day, it's something new, right? They believe they need to fight. They have 30% of this country believing that violence against the government is necessary sometime. When would that be? How would that work out for everybody? It wouldn't. They can't even participate in legitimate government. You can't get people off the fucking sofa. But you can get them out, and you can get them out with bombs and guns. And you know what? If there is ever a civil war, and this has been not just talked about by groups like the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys, but Madison Cawthorn, elected people, Marjorie Taylor Greene. If there is a civil war here, we're in a world of trouble because the right wing is armed to the teeth. You think I'm pushing the panic button? 3 retired generals think the military has to prepare now for a 2024 insurrection. If another Democrat wins, if any Democrat wins, if Biden wins, don't think this isn't going to happen again, especially if Trump runs and loses. We have the military now telling you what to do. Get ready.
And can I just interject again? The Proud Boys, while they were chanting before their riot, they were talking about how they considered themselves the new police.
Right.
They believe this is their country now.
Right.
This is their capital now. And if they want to go inside their capital through the windows,
they're going to.
And they're going to. And if they want to piss in the Capitol and smear feces on their Capitol, that's what they'll do.
Right.
While their women sit on the sideline handing them beers.
And by the way, let me just say this. Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Josh Hawley, they consider themselves the new face of the GOP.
Yeah.
And this is why people like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger are pushing the panic button on their own party.
Yeah.
Prepare for right-wing U.S. dictatorship before 2030. This is being talked about in Canada. They border us directly. They're worried there.
Yeah.
They think there's if Donald, I will tell you this, if Donald Trump is reelected in 2024, all bets are off here. You can forget democracy in this country. He will be so full of retribution that he will be unbridled in the shit that he will pull. Because you know what? He would never have to worry about getting reelected again. This will be his second term. This guy, they need to find a way to stop him now. We have the GOP now going to conservative meetings where they literally cheer people like Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, Kyle Rittenhouse, who was not going to be involved in politics, he didn't want any part of that. That's why he showed up at Mar-a-Lago after he was acquitted. Okay. That's why he showed up at this conference where everybody could cheer him as a hero. They are cheering a now 18-year-old thug who was a 17-year-old thug when he did what he did. Okay. Someone who was carrying a gun illegally, someone who purchased his gun through a friend because he knew he was too young to get one, someone who crossed state lines with an automatic weapon, allegedly to protect buildings, someone who shot someone in the back 7 times in self-defense, mind you. Need I say more? And people are cheering him. People are cheering him like he's some kind of fucking hero. Okay. I wonder if they would be doing that if it was a Black Lives Matter person. I don't think so. These are some of the other.
They're cheering for him because he was, in their eyes, opposing the Black Lives Matter movement, because the people that love him are the racist people.
Right. But if you listen to him talk, he supports Black Lives Matter. He's full of shit.
That was after the fact. That was after, and that was just so people wouldn't fucking come for him.
Right.
And it didn't work. No one's gonna fucking support him.
By the way, no one came after him either. Okay. There has been no retribution by Black Lives Matter or Antifa or anybody else to go after him. Okay. So let's stop talking about the left being violent. Here's another issue. All of these people that are supported by corporate America and by the Koch brothers and all of the rest of the corporations, these are the people who are now filing 262 bills across 41 states, of which 32 so far have been passed in 17 of those states, that will allow state legislators to politicize, criminalize, or interfere with elections. Everybody beware. This is going on all across the country. No state is immune from this. This is directly to disenfranchise minority voters and women, because they do not serve the right-wing purpose. Here's another one. Be very afraid, because now we have people who are loyal to Trump running for election oversight posts. This would be, people who watchdog the election process, Secretary of State, chief election officials, all in the states that were earmarked as battleground states, the states where Trump tried to overturn the results so he could win the presidency back. They are literally running for these positions everywhere. What they do is they do this on a state-by-state basis, and this is how they build their strength. And they're like an octopus. Okay, they have tentacles everywhere. People need to be aware that this has been a long-term plan. Okay, this is not just something new. What it was going on before Trump. It was going on before Baby Bush. It's been going on for a very long time. What they finally had in Donald Trump was someone who would bring it to the forefront and legitimize it. And that is exactly what he has done.
In all honesty, this started back a little before the 80s.
Yep.
I mean, you're talking about the Koch brothers too. It started around that time, and they're very, very patient.
You're talking about, not just political entities, but you're talking about Christian right. A lot of this is Christian right. A lot of these ideologies come from the Christian right. You're talking about what used to be the moral majority. You're talking about, the Newt Gingriches of the world. This has been going on for a very, very long time. The Tea Party turned into the alt-right. This has been a progression.
Right.
They stormed the Capitol. Now they're running for office, literally, on top of the 147 Sedition Caucus members. We have another 57 who played a role on January 6th not running in 2022.
By the way, some of these people have been convicted.
Exactly. And don't say they can't run. Seriously, because they will. Here's Ron Watkins. I mentioned him earlier. This is the guy that they think is QAnon. He's raising freaking money. And no one even knows what state he's running in. But people are paying this guy. He's raising money. Ron Watkins for Congress. This is a 2022 website. We have an ex-KKK leader running in Georgia. I'm just going to show you some of the shit that's running. I'm going to show you some of the rabble. Here's this bonehead. She's running in Texas. And she says that Chinese students should be banned from Texas universities. That's because of COVID, just so you know. By the way, she's really qualified too, because, you know, she was an anti-lockdown activist and a hairdresser. Don't even get me started. And again, I'm just going to put this in at the end. Here's the pipe bomb again. It'll only be in there once. I can't emphasize to you how something like this happening, this is not just something that happens, you know, on the spur of the moment. It shows a great deal of planning.
Right.
You know, and I want to talk about Merrick Garland a little bit. He's been pretty quiet, okay? And, you know, I was kind of annoyed myself, but you know what? He made a speech, and I actually think this guy knows what he's doing. Just for the record, he is the one that got the Oklahoma City bombers convicted, okay? This is a guy who's not going to tip his hand. He's not. He's not going to reveal anything. He's not going to say what he's going to do before this study, before this investigation is over. All right. Understand this. He's the Attorney General of the United States. Legally, he knows what needs to happen before he can say anything. He has said openly in the speech that he will follow wherever the evidence leads, and it doesn't matter what position these people were in when this happened, that he will hold everybody accountable, and that people need to be patient, because it does not benefit anybody to reveal information ahead of time. It can harm the case. It can harm the prosecution. It can be used by attorneys to weaken the government's case against them. You know, I'm going to just read this portion here, because I think this is important. Garland cited the Watergate investigation in defense of the pace of the mechanics of the Justice Department's investigation. This is a lethally important point. There was a long period of time in which it seemed as though the actual investigation would never get past the White House gates. For example, back in 1974, there was tremendous impatience among the Democratic majority in the House of Representatives and how slowly they perceived the Judiciary Committee's impeachment inquiry was moving. Yet one day, committee counsel John Doerr showed up with a binder containing his statement of the case against Richard Nixon, and the fight was over at that moment. They never even had to impeach Nixon. They had him so dead that he resigned. It was thinking about John Doerr that reminded me that Merrick Garland convicted both of the Oklahoma City bombers after an investigation that did not leak a drop. They cannot have leaks, okay? They cannot leak anything to the public that may be used in a prosecution, okay? So people need to understand what the DOJ's role is in all of this. And it is to protect the people by following the rule of law. And then on the day that was the first anniversary, we had a speech by Joe Biden. Now, I've gotten into arguments with people about this being politically motivated. I actually don't believe it is. I really don't think that Joe Biden has made an issue of the insurrection from the get-go. I really don't. I've watched his speeches. You know, if people have asked about it, they've responded. But he has not been out there with fire and brimstone using it to his political advantage. But you know what? He was directly involved in the events of January 6th. His presidency was targeted on that day. And he has a role to play as president of the United States now to make sure people understand that we cannot forget this event and we cannot back away from it. And we cannot just pretend it didn't happen. And neither can he. He would be remiss if he pretended it just didn't happen. All right. And, you know, he basically said, I did not seek this fight brought to this Capitol 1 year ago today, but I will not shrink from it either. I will stand in this breach. I will defend this nation, and I will allow no one to place a dagger at the throat of democracy, which is exactly what they're doing. And they're not done yet. You know, I will tell you right now, you get Ted Cruz out there today saying that if the Republicans win back power, they could impeach Biden. For what? For fucking what? Because he's a Democrat? For what?
Didn't somebody try to put in an impeachment order on Biden on his inauguration day?
Yeah. You know, honestly. You know, I'm pretty much done here. I mean, I think that's enough. I don't know how much more information you people need to, you know, get to the point where you're involved in this. But I'm suggesting to you, that to pretend that this is over is the first mistake you're going to make. The
Right.
second mistake you're going to make is believing that this was just no big deal.
Right.
You know, to me,
So, yeah.
you know, this is the single most egregious act I have ever seen. And I'm 68 in February. I've been following politics. I've been a political junkie all my life. I started doing this shit when I was a teenager, before I could even vote.
Right. So, Deb, would you like me to show that website?
I would.
Okay, hold on one second.
By the way, I want to say that Sarah has been feeding us some great stuff. We did not include it here just because we had so much, but that doesn't mean we're not going to do another video, because you know we're not going to let this die either. We're going to see where this goes when the committee gets going, and we're going to continue to report on this whether people want to hear it or not.
Hey, I have a lot more, Deb, too, if you want.
I want it all. I want it all. I'm actually.
I wasn't sure if you already had it, so I didn't even show you most of what I did.
Yeah, I'm actually putting together a blog post that's going to have links where people can just click on the articles. So I wanted to have that done before the weekend, but there was just no way for me to get all that done. So
Okay, I'll send you the Google Doc that I have already completed.
To recap real quick, Deb basically talked about a push for fascism, a fascist movement, because we're talking about all levels of government from local to national. We're talking about the media, national media, local media. We're talking about parts of military and paramilitary, politicians, the whole 9 yards. Okay, so this is a multi-leveled thing, and of course you have the people on the ground, and the white supremacist groups like the Boogaloo Boys and the Proud Boys and all of that. So this was a multi-pronged, multi-leveled, highly planned event.
Can I just add one thing because it's relative to what you're saying?
Yeah.
When I showed you the page about the retired generals saying to
Yes.
get ready for the next insurrection,
Yes.
make no mistake about this. They are also raising the alarm bells about the number of military background people involved in the insurrection.
Yes.
They are worried about people in the military now. They're warning people in the upper echelons of the military now to make sure that whoever is in the military is not an insurrectionist. They are worried about it on two levels. They're worried about what's going to happen on the streets and responding to it, but they're also worried about how many people have infiltrated the military.
And also the police forces too, I believe.
Absolutely.
So this is a website called Insurrection Index, and several organizations are involved in contributing to this. So it's a searchable database of records on individuals and organizations in positions of public trust who are involved in the deadly attack on the Capitol, January 6, 2021. Here are different areas of focus. So I'm just saying, and here are the partner organizations who made the database possible. Okay. So we have different organizations: Public Wise, the DC Court Docket, Accountable.us, which is corporate accountability, Advanced Democracy Incorporated, American Oversight, where they're doing FOIA requests, uses of public resources and communications. Campaign for Accountability, looking at public officials. Media Matters, which we use all the time, actually. Public officials, right-wing leaders, and staff involvement. Tech Transparency Project. So we're looking at military, police, and law enforcement and far-right forums. This kind of website is what we need to be looking at because this is a multi-pronged kind of thing. So let's see here. So here is where you can search the index. You have records. You come in here. Let's look at people who are running for office and people who have been charged. So this guy is Jason Riddle. He's currently running for the U.S. House of Representatives in New Hampshire, District 2. Okay. So we have. Let me see here. Oh, let me do New York because I want to show people something. So we have people who are already in office. If you remember Elise Stefanik, she took over.
Yep.
In the leadership position for Liz Cheney.
Yep.
Okay. Chris Jacobs, right? He is in the U.S. House of Representatives, New York. Nicole I can't pronounce her last name. Malagava, U.S. House, District 11, and this guy, Lee Zeldin. I know him pretty well. He is a Trump guy. He also spins some Q conspiracies from time to time, and he is running for New York governor, in the next election against Kathy Hochul. And make no mistake, they're doing a big push for this guy.
Yep.
So, one more thing I want to show real quick. I want to show Massachusetts because I want to make a point. Where are we at? There we go. So we have Suzanne Iani. She was arrested in Boston, Massachusetts. Status conference on September 28th, 2021. She holds in Natick, Massachusetts town meeting member precinct number 3. We are talking about not only state officials,
Local officials.
federal officials, but local also. Now we have Matthew Lynch, Braintree, Massachusetts School Committee. He's a former Braintree teacher.
Let me just tell you a story about this guy. He was fired, right?
Yeah.
For his involvement. And they put him on the school committee. He was fired as a teacher. He was removed. And they put him on the goddamn school committee in Braintree.
What I suggest to you, anybody who's watching, looks at this, and what can I do? You take a look at who's running in your state and make sure that that person does not, if they're running, that they don't get elected.
You know, I just want to say something, okay? And
Yeah.
I know I'm not going to be popular here when I do this. And I really don't give a shit. I'm going to tell you where I'm at right now. And this is not a lie, okay? For better or for worse, this is the system we live in.
Right.
Now, we tried to engage people to change the system. Nobody responded. So this is where I am right now. I consider the move to fascism the number one issue facing this country. And I consider the GOP the enemy. End of story. I mean, we can quibble all we want. No party politics for me. Well, I ain't saying that shit no more. I am voting straight Democrat right now, right here and right now. These people need to be kept out of office. This just isn't one guy doing this. This isn't just Donald Trump being a sore loser. This is a movement and a concerted effort to turn this country into a nation of white supremacist fascism. End of story. You have fucking Canada warning its people already that this could happen before 2030. Do you understand how close that is? You know, I don't know what alternative universe everybody in this country is living in, but I'm glad I'm not there with you because somebody needs to be awake here.
And by the way, anybody who is currently in New York State has said, well, you know, I don't want Lee Zeldin either, but Kathy Hochul's way too moderate or Kathy Hochul's way too, you know what? You really want Lee Zeldin, who is basically, you know, Trump Jr.? I don't. I'm sorry, I don't.
Yeah,
You're back.
No bones about it. I'm voting straight Democratic ticket. I don't care. I am never sitting it out again.
Right.
And you know, I don't know. Maybe people don't get it. Okay, I can tell you from my personal experience. I've been gay since the womb. I was never a straight person a day in my life. Okay, I have been discriminated against by the right wing. I have been chased with baseball bats by a bunch of right wingers outside a gay bar. I have been homeless and told, you know, had my partner told, we'll put you and the kids in a shelter if you get rid of her, meaning me, because it wasn't recognized. I've seen it all. Okay. I have a transgender child right now. I don't want to yell too loud because I don't want her to think I'm using her as a political pawn. I have a transgender child who is, you know, literally terrified of what she faces in this country, doesn't want to live here. And I don't blame her. And I'm going to help her get the fuck out.
Right.
You know, I know what this is. I have been tracking the right wing since the 80s. I have been following them. I have an entire freaking file cabinet full of articles that go way back to 1980 on what this movement is doing. And we are here now at this point because people have not been paying attention.
And by the way, all these slogans and talking points and all this. Oh, now you're picking the lesser of two evils. Well, you know what?
We fell into that trap too.
Yeah,
The two parties are not the same. Aren't even close. They're not the same. No, they're not. And I will say this also. I may never run for office, but I know what I don't want representing me.
right.
I cannot, in all conscience, find a way to make peace or unite with the right wing. Just their very ideology is repugnant to me. Okay? They are anti everything that isn't white. They are anti everything that isn't white male. Women, women might think, oh, I'm white and I'm a woman and I'm never going to have a baby. I'm beyond that age. Like me, I'm 68 years old. You know what? I don't care. I don't think people have a right to dictate my reproductive rights, even at 68 years old. I have children who are younger, whose rights should not be dictated to by a group of people. None of this is okay. All right. And again, I say this and I know people are going to laugh, but we really need to look at our Constitution. It needs to be amended and rewritten. It needs to be strengthened. Something needs to happen. But for right now, if we don't look at this event and make sure that someone is held accountable, our current Constitution it makes a mockery of any kind of democracy or Constitution we may be, upholding. It cannot be allowed to happen. And that's it. I got nothing more to say. If that doesn't, ring your bell, I don't know what to tell you. Anything else before I shut the recording? Going once.
Good.
Going twice. Ding, ding, ding.